Well, hello everybody. It's me, Ollie, and we are located on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And today we are going to learn how you can take your own picture of your artwork using your own devices and tools at home. All right. So everybody, most of you have a smartphone or an iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, you can totally take your own pictures at home. So what you have here on your phone, you look at the camera button that's on the screen. So for those of you who don't know what a camera button is, this is what it looks like. It's gray and there's a camera in front of it with a little yellow flash. Or you have another option. You can swipe left on the iPhone lock screen. So with an iPhone, and right now I'm talking about the iPhone, but I'm going to talk about other devices after. So the photo is the standard mode that you see when you open the camera. So again, if you look at this camera here, this is the standard mode, okay? So there's other options, but you don't need the other options to take a picture of your artwork at home. But if you were to want to use it for any other things such as posting on social media or creating online content or portfolio, you have the other one that is a video. So you can, if you swipe left or right, you will find a video option. You'll find time lapse, slow motion, panoramic, portrait, or square. So with your iPhone, if you want to zoom in or out to take your picture, you simply have to pinch the screen. So you just take the screen like this and you pinch it like that. You can click on one X. So basically there's this little wheel where you can actually zoom in and out and other options will show up. So you can touch and hold the zoom controls, then drag the slider right or left. And then to take a picture, you tap the shutter button or press either the volume button to take a photo. So there's two options. If you have an Android or any other phone, you can start a camera app on that phone, and then you choose the single shot mode, and then you touch again the shutter icon. So zooming in or out is done either by using on-screen controls or by touching the volume key. All right. Now that you have your phone, the thing with the phone is that it has usually great flash. Sometimes flash is not the best for taking pictures of your artwork if you want to have a great picture. For me, it's not something that I use. I prefer to have light that comes from other sources so it doesn't affect basically the quality of the picture. I notice myself if I use the flash that sometimes if you've put any form of gesso or varnish on your paintings, the flash will reflect on your painting and it's not going to look as good. So it's best to use lighting that does not come from the phone. That being said, it's not a no-go, but it's something that for me, as taking my own pictures at home, I found was more challenging. The thing that works the best for me and where I've had the best pictures and something that like people are like, ooh, who took your pictures? Like I actually did it with my phone. Is actually to use natural daylight. So in the summer in Vancouver, or no matter where you're watching this beautiful video, we're very lucky to have natural daylight. So this is your best friend. So natural daylight, especially around noon, where the sun is like right above us, is the best light possible. So you can have the artwork lie flat outside on an overcast day around noon. So basically when the sun is overhead. If it's very sunny, it works great as well. But really, like if there's a little bit of overcast, which I guess in Vancouver, or Vancouver area, we have a lot of these days. So we're very lucky when it comes to taking pictures. So if you can't do outside, you can use a nice big window, ideally north facing to avoid the hard shadows of south facing. You can position yourself in a way that you face the drawing head on to avoid creating shadows. So basically when you do it, if you're right in front of the paintings, you may have shadows. So you need to place yourself in a way that like you're not within, that the sun is not really projecting a shadow onto the piece. Why do I say natural light? Basically, color is created on a surface by specific wavelengths being absorbed and others being reflected. So if the light that is shining on a surface doesn't contain all of the visible colors, basically the full spectrum, they can't be reflected. So your camera won't be able to record them. So if you cannot, by any means, take a picture outside, which is totally fine, there's other options, and you can actually do it yourself at home with different types of lighting. Something that I recommend for every artist to have, and it's something that is not overly pricey anymore, but is to have a ring light at home. They are not expensive or have like any form of spotlight. Spotlights are great as well for showcases. I know a lot of places that will offer room for new artists, do not always provide lighting. So it's always good to have a spotlight that you can bring to your show. So it's something that I would recommend in the form of investment. So you can use them at home for your pictures, and you can actually take them to your shows in person. What I would do is position the artwork directly on the wall. You know, at home, we may not have all the space to have an extra room to put your artwork, but what I do sometimes is I just swap a painting or a piece that I actually have on my wall at home, and I replace it with my piece for the time that I take the picture, and it works great. Turn on the floodlights and turn off the room lights. So basically you want to like make sure that like there's no sources of light coming from different places in your room, because that can affect the lighting on the piece. So if I have this beautiful like a chandelier about my dining room, and then like all the sparkles are reflecting, then it may reflect on the piece and add different shadows and different lights on your piece that are basically not there in your actual creation. So any extra light will upset the color balance of your pictures. So close your blinds to avoid any shadows. And then you can use the ring lights or other lights to create what we call a triangle setup. So this is the lighting for your artwork. Okay, so this is what the triangle setup looks like. So you can see here, this is the wall, my very abstract wall. And you can see here, I have two sets of light. So one to the left and one to the right. And both are about at a 45-degree angle. So they both touch the piece like together. So basically when the lights are here and the painting is there, all together, it creates a triangle. That way, having light on each end, both facing the same angle, will remove a lot of the shadows. Because if it's not in the same angle or the same location, you will create those added shadows. And then your camera must be facing dead on the art piece. So you're right in front of it. So you're also basically a triangle with the lighting. So here, something else that you can do, okay, to help you take a picture. So for on phones or on any iPhone or Android, there's always a grid option. I would always turn on the grid option. The grid option will basically split up your camera into like all these tiny squares. They're all at the same length. And with the squares, you can actually line up your piece within the squares to make sure that your picture is straight. So it's basically like a ruler for basically for the phone to help you make sure that everything is well placed. So you can look at angles, like maybe you can use one of the right angle on the grid and line it up with your picture on the wall. For me, I never take the picture of just the art piece. I'd rather stay back and have more of the wall behind me. I find that safer. And then after, I'm going to show you how you can actually crop it. But I feel for myself that I like to have a little more around the piece to make sure that I am not missing on anything when I'm cropping it. So basically here, the rule of third is a compositional guideline that breaks the image into 2/3, so both horizontally and vertically. So simply use the grid lines to position essential compositional elements. So here you see you have the rule of 3, so you separate your piece into like your grid into 9, and then you look at it here, and then you try to place the artwork within the rule of 3, so around here in the middle. Okay. So here again, you can actually like add those options. Okay, so create these intersections, okay, within your 9 square grid. So the composition, if we talk about the word composition, it refers to the arrangement of the photo. So the shapes, the textures, colors, and basically any other elements that make up your images. So for when you take your picture, okay, it's good to set the focus and check your distance. So if you're taking a picture of an object of a person, okay, so it's time to adjust where you want your camera lens to focus. Open your camera app and then tap the screen where you want to sharpen the view. But if you're taking a picture of an artwork, you have to hold your camera further back, and then you think from your painting, and it will actually help you reduce the optical lens distortion. And now it is time to take a picture. So when you have all of these elements in place, you can take your picture and you're ready to go. The first time it may take a while, but as you're practicing it, as you're doing it, it will come much easier to you. So this is an option for you to do and take the best possible quality pictures at home without hiring somebody or without having to add on more costs to how much it already costs you to be an artist and all the investments that you have. If you do not have a ring light at home, you can also look at light that you already have and make sure that the light bulbs are not yellow so it doesn't change the tones of your pieces. Now that this is done, then you have your picture, and then sometimes your picture won't be perfect because we're at home and we're not, some of you may be actual photographers, and this is fantastic, this is incredible, but sometimes your image will require some editing to do. So the first thing, as I mentioned, if your picture still has a border, if you can still see some things around you, which I actually do recommend to make sure that your picture can be nicely cropped after and then the lighting is even. So when done, use the cropping tool to remove any other elements from your picture. So you pull in one of the corners of the frame, and this will show you a preview of your crop first. So your picture won't get cropped until you approve it. And then when you're happy with the result, and you're like, oh, this is what I want, then you just press done. So editing. So if you have a photo editor on an iPhone or a Samsung, this is kind of like the stuff that you have. So these are the main editing tools. So there's a lot of options. You know, a lot of people would say or think that, oh, if you play with the colors of your piece, is your piece actually still accurate to what you're selling? I would say use these editing tools because you're taking, and this is like more of a workshop or ideas on how to do it yourself at home, because you may not have a professional setting, you may have to play a bit with the setting to make sure that your piece or that your picture actually is as accurate to the piece as possible. So you may have to touch up a few things. For example, if your lighting wasn't perfect, or if you feel like, oh, there might be this place here where we don't, because of the quality of my camera, I don't see as much of the texture that I wanted to have in my paintings. That's what I find, is because I, on my pieces, have a lot of texture, and I find sometimes that the piece, that whenever I take a picture, you see a bit of the texture, but it looks much more flat than what it is in person. So I'm going to use sometimes I'm going to use one, for example, that's called Sharpen, that will actually like really like enhance a bit of all of the texture on the piece. But this is really, I recommend these editing tools, and I'm going to go and go over them simply and only if you feel that your picture is a great picture, but that there's some little things that your camera did not capture well. So your exposure, if you feel like, oh, it's bright, it's great, but it's not as bright as what it looked like in the sun, you can add a bit of exposure. Like if you like swipe right, it's going to make it brighter. And if you swipe left, if you think, oh, it's not, it's like just, it's usually a little darker. Maybe I put too much light on it, but it's great. You can just like, if you go to the left, it's going to make it a little softer. The brilliance is great for adding details. And again, highlights, it adjusts again the brightness of only the bright areas of your photo. So here as an artwork, like if you want to make sure everything is even, so maybe the exposure is more one that you want to use. Shadows, again, it really works on the dark areas, more created by shadows. Yeah, the contrast, so this was between the dark and bright tones in your pictures. Brightness, again, is a good one. The black point tool affect the brightness of only the darkest tones in your picture. And the saturation tool makes the color more vibrant or less vibrant. Something that I use, and I'm going to talk more about this after, this site after, I do use CANVA myself to edit a lot of my picture. The reason why I use CANVA is because it's first of all, it's free, it's user-friendly, and there's many functions. For me, I like to have everything in the same spot. There's other editing tools I'm going to present to you right after. But for me, CANVA also offers social media strategies. It offers a calendar to organize your posts. It offers different templates. So it offers you a brand style guide for your branding. So for me, having CANVA really has helped me as an artist really navigate both the cropping, the editing, and the social media, and keeping all of my branding similar. So that's one I would recommend. If you're starting with an editing tool, I would recommend that you only stick to the one program if having too many programs is overwhelming. If you're somebody that is, that really is much more tech savvy and can easily navigate between different applications, PicMonkey is a great one to have clearer images. So this one is much more focused on the image editing, where CANVA offers like many different options in terms of branding. So there's more templates and options, and it's more focused, again, as I was saying, on image editing. There's other free sites that you can use. So there's Snappa, there's Pictochart, and there's Pixlr that are very popular amongst artists to organize their pieces. And this is where the recording ends for this part.